At the Chicago School of Professional Psychology in Los Angeles, we know you're more than just a student. You're a catalyst for change and an advocate for those in need. And we believe you deserve more. So your faculty are accomplished professionals. Your classroom is the real world. And the support you need is available when you need it. You're more than a student. Get more from your education. Learn more about the Chicago School's Los Angeles campus today at thechicagoschool.edu.
Looking for a change of scenery? Scottsdale, Arizona's vast Sonoran Desert offers you plenty of sunshine and room to roam. Start your day with a sunrise hike in the lush McDowell Sonoran Preserve. Soak up the sounds of nature on a Salt River kayaking trip. Or savor innovative cuisine on a sun-drenched restaurant patio. And with the holidays coming, Scottsdale's decked out with plenty of seasonal cheer to brighten your days and nights. Visit holidaysinscottsdale.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 141. We have a new witness who has come forward, and he is saying that he witnessed Prince Andrew in the company of Virginia Roberts in the Virgin Islands, and not only were they in each other's company, but he saw the Prince of Punk Asses kiss Virginia Roberts as well as grope Virginia Roberts. Now, you add all of this to the evidence we already have. You add it to everything that has already been said about Prince Andrew on the record. You add it to the fact that he really can't tell us where he was the night that this occurred. You add all of this up, and that is what you call credible evidence, folks. Credible evidence. So what we have here is another person coming forward corroborating what Virginia Roberts has said. Another person coming forward corroborating what the truth obviously is. Meanwhile, Prince Andrew is busy telling stories. Prince Andrew is busy blaming non-existent conditions that have to do with him sweating. Prince Andrew is such a slime ball, such a punk ass, that he is using his daughters as part of his alibi. This is the sort of person that we're dealing with, folks. This is the sort of man that is representing the crown. This is not the kind of man that anybody should be sticking up for at this point. It is very obvious that what Virginia Roberts has said for years now is the truth. It's very, very obvious that what she says rings true. And not only it's what she says, folks, it's the fact that there's other evidence to back up her very credible statements. Okay? The pieces don't fit together for Prince Andrew. I'm certainly no investigator. I'm just like the rest of you, somebody who's fired up and who's had enough of the nonsense and who's had enough of the lies and the BS and the deceit. I'm just the same as you, so I'm certainly not going to sit here and act like I'm some sort of investigator from the FBI. But when you look at all of the evidence that we have had presented to us, everything that's out there for the public to see, there really is no avenue where Prince Andrew gets out of this, in my opinion. This guy is up to his neck in trouble here, especially when you have corroborating witnesses now coming out of the woodwork, people that saw him grope and kiss Virginia Roberts. Not only was he in her presence, but groping and kissing her, totally corroborating her story that she was trafficked to him. So again, if we believe Virginia Roberts about what she said about Andrew, then why would we not believe her about the rest of these slime balls? Why would we not believe her about Glenn Dubin? Why would we not believe her about Bill Richardson or George Mitchell or any of these other scumbags? Well, I have news for you. With each passing day, with each day that passes, with more information that comes out, and the more we hear from these survivors, the more the picture becomes clear what was occurring. The more it is clear that all of these allegations are absolutely 100% true. The question is, when is the media going to dive into this? When is the legacy media really going to rip into this and rip it open? I don't think they're ever going to do it. I think they have too much to lose. When you have such high power players such as George Stephanopoulos, who's entrenched in the media, and those are all of his buddies, well, it's not going to look good on ABC or George Stephanopoulos when the whole entire world knows that he was hanging out with Epstein after his conviction, and that's not something that everybody knows, right? That's something that you only know if you get down into the weeds of the case and you start really looking at things. It's not something you see on TV, but it should be. Everybody that was hanging out with this guy should be on TV and broadcast and talked about, and the question should be asked, why were you hanging out with this convicted sex offender after he was already convicted and served, well, if you want to call it jail time, served jail time for his crimes? Why would you, as a member of the upper crust of society, the elite, or some business, mogul, why would you spend your time with somebody like this? Those are the questions that need to be asked. And that's what we're doing here on the podcast. And that's what other content creators are doing, like over at, the Prince and the Perv. These people, the gals over there, they're asking the same kind of questions, folks. Everybody, all of you are asking these questions. Why is the legacy media not asking them? That is what I would like to know. All right, so let's jump into this article. This article is from The Sun, and the headline, Royal Crisis, Witness claims he saw Prince Andrew kiss and grope Virginia Roberts on Jeffrey Epstein's pedo island. Steve Scully, 70, says he saw Prince Andrew kissing Virginia Roberts and grabbing her bottom on pedophile Jeffrey Epstein's Caribbean island home. All right, so first thing I take away from this, it's not some anonymous source, right? It's not an anonymous source. This man is willing to go on the record, and he's willing to speak with his identity known to the public. So I'm guessing that this man is, ready to come forward with his story. And usually when people are using their own name, a lot of times it's, considered more credible, obviously, because then people can vet the source. But sometimes it's people that are looking for attention. So I'm not saying that's what this man is doing, but my question is, why didn't he come forward before? What has taken so long? And again, for those of you who are just joining us, I don't read the articles on the Daily Drop before I read them with you. That way that my reaction is more visceral. I don't want to have some predetermined, nonsense line prepared for you when we do the Daily Drop here. I want to just make sure we read it and I respond as I'm reading it with you. That way it's more authentic, right? So I haven't read this article yet. Maybe it'll answer that question. Let's see. Scully, the tycoon's former phone and internet specialist, said Andrew was with a young bikini-clad blonde by a pool on Little St. James. He said he later spoke to Andrew when he encountered the pair holding hands on a pathway. This is damning stuff, folks. This is damning stuff. I hope Jeffrey Berman's listening. And while I want to put this guy through the ringer for not coming forward earlier, I don't want to discourage anybody who might come forward in the future, right? So better late than never, I guess. I mean, obviously, if you should come forward if you have this information right away, but at least he's coming forward now. And this is damning stuff. If this is real, if this is a true account of what he saw, and he's willing to, go under oath and talk about this is damning for the Prince of Punk asses. He's in big trouble, folks. Steve recalled, I said, Your Highness? And he said, No, it's Andrew. I said, I'm sorry, I really didn't know how to address you. He is convinced the young woman was Virginia, who has claimed she was forced to take part in an orgy with the Duke of York on the tropical estate. Steve is the first witness to come forward to say they saw Andrew with Virginia on the island. Now, we have the witnesses that have come forward that said they saw her with him in the club Tramp in England, and we have the pilot saying that they were together on the plane, and we know that there's a ton more that are going to come forward now, and I think this might be the floodgates, right? And I know people will talk about the NDAs and all of that stuff, but when it comes to criminal stuff like this, there has to be a way for that to be not binding, right? So I think there's going to be a way around that, and I think you're going to see a floodgate of people start talking about what's going on here. These crimes are so heinous, and nobody wants to be caught up with this, and nobody wants their name associated as an enabler at this point. And hopefully this Steve Scully cat is the first one to start spilling the beans, and we get more. And I think that's very important. If we get his ex-employees to come forward and corroborate what was going on here, man, this is ironclad stuff, folks. It's an ironclad open and shut case. It's not even a question. It goes on. I mean, the evidence is overwhelming at that point. If employees start coming forward and you have 5, 6, 7 employees that come out and corroborate this story, wow. Andrew's looking at some big trouble here, in my opinion, folks. Prince Andrew, the Prince of Punk Asses, has emphatically denied a relationship with Miss Roberts and has said he cannot recall a 2001 picture of them together. I guess he fell and hit his head and was suffering from a traumatic brain injury or something. That'll be the next excuse. Well, nobody knew, but when I was at war over in Afghanistan, I was over there on a secret mission, and I suffered a traumatic brain injury. That's why I don't remember taking that picture with her. I mean, that's how asinine things are at this point. So why would we expect him not to come up with something just as asinine as that story right there? Because this guy understands that he is against it now, right? This guy is under the microscope big time, and the Prince of Punk Asses is feeling the heat. In a world-exclusive interview, Steve told The Sun on Sunday that he saw Andrew and the young woman fooling around by the pool for several minutes. Steve, 70, said he was grabbing her behind and stuff like that. They were kissing. He was grinding against her and groping her. It's abhorrent. And there's, right as you're reading it, and I hope, like always, you click on the article and check out the article and follow the links on there, the hyperlinks, and look at the pictures. There's a picture of this disgusting bastard, the Prince of Punk Asses, with his arm around Virginia Roberts with this big goofy-ass smile on his face, with the disgustoid Ghislaine Maxwell in the background. Everyone's having a good old time, but meanwhile, Prince Andrew, the Prince of Punk Asses, doesn't remember the picture being taken, doesn't remember ever meeting her. Come on, give me a break. Nobody is buying that. Steve, who had been summoned to fix a phone jack, continued, they were initially lying on lounge chairs by the pool. When they stood up, they were in between the chairs. She wasn't resisting in any manner whatsoever. The look on Andrew's face was excitement. Of course she wasn't resisting. She was being trafficked to this guy. She was completely being trafficked to this guy by Jeffrey Epstein, and she was groomed for this purpose. That's what these sick bastards do. And Prince Andrew knew the score. He knew what was up. He might not have known, all the details, but he was complicit. He knew what was up. He was a grown-ass man. He's the Prince of England. Why are you going to this island with this sick bastard? Why are you down here getting massages? Why are you down here cavorting with girls you have no idea who they are, where they're from, what their ages are, when you're the Prince of England? Literally, folks, the Prince of England, you can do whatever you want. Associate with whoever you want to associate with. And this man chose to associate with people like Jeffrey Epstein and others like him, like Nygaard. So, this guy's excuses, they don't cut the mustard. They were bumping and grinding and fooling around for 5, 6, 7 minutes, and then they laid down on the lounge chairs and continued. When he later bumped into the pair, Steve said that he introduced himself. I said, I'm Steve the phone guy. He said, all right, Steve the phone guy, I saw you earlier. It's certainly a lovely place to work, isn't it? This is the kind of conversation that Prince Andrew, the Prince of Punk Asses, was having with the staff on the island. This is why it's so crucial that the staff comes forward. I implore the staff to come forward. If any of them happen by chance to be listening to this podcast, you have to come forward. You have to leak this information. You have to find somebody you trust to get the information out there. Whatever the vehicle is, this information must come forward. You have to come forward. She was so young. This is where it struck me as how young the girl was, because she stood like a kid who would stand behind a parent. Oh, this is disgusting, folks. This makes me very uncomfortable to read. And again, it makes me say, what took Steve so long to come forward and report this and come out with this? Or has he reported it to somebody and nobody did anything about it, which is quite possible. We've seen the authorities ignore reports numerous times in this case. They did it to Maria Farmer. They walked off together, and I went the other way. It was so obvious she was so young, and she never said a word. I thought she looked particularly young, and it bothered me. I thought that it wasn't appropriate. Did it bother you enough to report it, Mr. Scully? Come on, bud. There is no suggestion that what Steve saw appeared non-consensual to him. Well, if she's being trafficked, that alone right there makes it non-consensual. She didn't choose to be trafficked, okay? She was coerced into that. She was groomed for that. These bastards are very smooth at what they do. They know exactly what they're doing. And the psychology behind it proves that this occurs. So she wasn't It wasn't that it was non-consensual, all right? It was that she was being trafficked, folks. Don't let the language here fool you, okay? And act like she was into it or something like that, because that's abhorrent. That is absolutely abhorrent. She was just a kid. She had no idea what was going on here, okay? But Miss Roberts now says she was forced to take part in an orgy with the royal on Little St. James after having sex with him in London and New York in 2001. Father of three, Steve, who has not been paid for this interview, is making this astonishing claim publicly for the first time. His wife Pamela and pal Bobby Gottlieb both confirmed he had told them what he saw at the time. Wow, folks, this is damning for the Prince of Punk asses. This is crazy. This is crazy. If this was reported about anyone else, the FBI would be showing up in a tank with a helicopter, a SWAT team, 9 news organizations, but yet here we are. Nobody's being arrested. They're not even talking to this guy. What is really going on, folks? Is this what our taxpayer dollars are going to? Is this what we're going to stand by and let occur on a regular basis? He said he ran into Prince Andrew one Saturday sometime between 2001 and 2004, but never saw him or the blonde again. The blonde being Virginia Roberts. He had been called to Little St. James by Miles and Kathy Alexander, then caretakers of the island. These are 2 names that we need to make sure that we look into, folks. Miles and Kathy Alexander, caretakers of the island. They've been on my list for quite some time, and when I get back from Santa Fe, I'm going to start a dive into these 2 and see what their deal is. Steve said when Miles called, he said, "I had to fix Jeffrey's favorite phone. It was on the front porch in front of the living room." Steve said he was warned by Miles there was a special guest on the 72-acre Caribbean paradise. Again, Miles, Kathy Alexander, both gatekeepers, both people that have keys, key holders, both people that know where the skeletons are buried. I would bet my last dollar on it. I don't have evidence to prove that, obviously, but boy, I've been pretty spot on so far. Once there, Steve went to a porch and saw Prince Andrew about 50 feet away from him with the young blonde. He said he turned toward me and I went, "Oh my goodness, British royalty. That's amazing." Last night, Virginia's lawyer, David Boies, described Steve as a very significant witness and was arranging to speak to him. Attaboy, David Boies. Go get him, my man. Look, I've been critical of David Boies in the past as well, but unlike Gloria Allred and her daughter, Lisa Bloom, David Boies is really doing this case the right way. And he's treating these survivors with respect, and he's treating this case with the respect that it deserves. And when I'm critical of people, it's for a reason, but I'm also willing to give them their credit when they've earned that back. And so far during this case, David Boies has been doing a really good job of standing up and advocating for these survivors. He added Virginia was with Prince Andrew on the island. It would have been in 2001 or the first half of 2002. She doesn't remember this particular incident, but she says she was groped by him on a number of occasions. Steve said he was prepared to give a statement under oath. He said, "You get me in front of Prince Andrew and I'll challenge him." Wow. All right, like I said before, he didn't come forward before, and maybe it was he was scared. Maybe he was threatened. Maybe he had some sort of NDA, and maybe it's been weighing on his conscience and he wants to make things right. And in our society, there's very few things that you can do in life where there's not a comeback story from it. Besides what Andrew has done and what Epstein was up to, obviously there's no coming back from that. But we love a good comeback story in America, especially. So this is the way to absolve yourself. If you know something and you have not come forward, you come forward now. Absolve yourself. Do the right thing. And that's what Steve Scully's doing here, and he's willing to go in front of a judge, go under oath, and he should be applauded for that. And I'm going to give him his props for sure right here on this podcast. If you're listening out there, Mr. Scully, good job. Props to you, sir. Investigation ongoing. He was there with Virginia. There is no question about that. Steve's claim comes as the authorities continue to investigate Epstein's crimes. The FBI and the Southern District of New York are probing co-conspirators who allegedly aided the sex offender. Officials in the U.S. Virgin Islands have launched a lawsuit against Epstein's estate in a bid to seize Little St. James, where hundreds of girls were allegedly sex trafficked. Again, come on, man. They don't need to seize anything. If anything, the estate needs to be seized, but put into a trust and given to the survivors when it's time for them to get their reparations. Because obviously, everything that Virginia Roberts said, let me be very clear, folks, I believe everything Virginia Roberts has said about this. There is zero doubt in my mind. And I'm not a believe all women guy. I'm not a believe all men guy. I'm a believe the evidence person, okay? I follow the evidence, and wherever it leads, that's how I base my opinions, and that's what I go off of. And in this case, right here, all of these girls are so credible, it's not even funny. How the investigators in the very beginning didn't listen to them, starting with Maria Farmer, is beyond me. And how they sleep at night is also beyond me. Because in a way, they are complicit as well. Attorney General Denise George said last week a former employee had told her they had seen Prince Andrew groping girls on the island. Again, corroborating Virginia Roberts' story. Steve lives on the nearby island of St. Thomas and worked for our American financier Epstein, pedophile, between 1999 and 2006. He would visit the billionaire's island around twice a month to maintain his phone lines and internet service. Miles and Kathy Alexander, who we tracked down in South Africa, confirmed they knew Steve. In 2008, Epstein was jailed for procuring a child for prostitution and served 13 months in jail. I mean, listen to that charge. Procuring a child for prostitution. This dude, a straight-up pedophile, was admitted back into polite society to hang out with people like Katie Couric, George Stephanopoulos, Woody Allen, and the list goes on, folks. The list goes on. And these are the people who have the audacity to speak down to you. These are the people who have the audacity to get on their high horse and act like they're the moral compass of the world. Meanwhile, they're spending their free time with Jeffrey damn Epstein. Last July, he was arrested on child sex trafficking charges. That month, Steve saw a picture of Prince Andrew with his arm around a teenage Virginia. The snap, which Andrew claimed may be faked, was reportedly taken in London in 2001. Steve said, that's the girl who was with Prince Andrew. Epstein, 66, killed himself in jail last August before any trial, allegedly. Steve said he was interviewed by the FBI shortly before and after Epstein's death, but did not mention seeing Prince Andrew. Why? I wonder why. Maybe the questions weren't concocted that way. Maybe they weren't directed that way, but man, I'm glad he's coming out now. I am glad he is coming out now. The Royal 60 has denied any sexual activity took place between himself and Virginia. Buckingham Palace declined to comment. Previously, it is said, it is emphatically denied the Duke of York had any form of sexual contact or relationship with Virginia Roberts. Any claim to the contrary is false and without foundation. And then, like I said, folks, make sure you come to the article and click on the link in the description, or just go to the Sun yourself and look at the article. There's a bunch of pictures there, and there's some links so you can follow some some other parts of the story, etc., etc. And it's always good to go and check out the article anyway, because guess what? You can't believe what anybody tells you these days, right? You always go and double check. Make sure that, I always double check everything at this point, and I like to read, so I read every damn article I can get my hands on. That's why when you folks send me articles, I love it. Even if I haven't responded back and you've sent me articles, believe me, I'm trying to read them, and I'm trying to answer all of these emails. There's just a whole lot of them, a whole lot, so it takes me time to go through them. And if I've missed your email, it's certainly not on purpose. So send me another one, and it'll go back to the top of the pile, and I'll try and get to it for sure. The next couple of days are going to be very hectic for me. I'm leaving on Tuesday for Santa Fe, and leading up to that, I have a bunch of stuff to get ready in, the real world, get my house prepared, etc., etc. And I still have a bunch of research that I'm doing. So, it's a long journey, folks. It's a long journey and a big time commitment. But here we are. We're right in the middle of it, and we have people coming forward now corroborating the story. And Prince Andrew has provided no evidence to refute what's going on here. And so the Prince of Punk Asses is really finding himself in a real bad spot. And I've said it, I'm on record saying it, that by the end of this year, I expect there to be a lot of movement in this case, starting within the next, 6 months. I truly believe that we're going to see people arrested over this case. I think that the public outcry is so extreme. The public outcry is so extreme at this point that they cannot ignore it. They cannot ignore it. And, when we see stuff like this, with the Prince of Punk asses getting himself in a jam like this, you know that things are moving in the right direction. And I just hope the American legacy media gets on board and they go as hard after this story in America, no matter who it is, folks. I do not care what party they're from, what they've accomplished in life, what charity they've donated to, how many trees they've planted. I don't care about any of that. If they are involved in this case and there is evidence proving that they're involved in this case, boy, oh boy, they need to be called out on the carpet and they need to answer questions. Nobody, and I mean nobody, including the Prince of England, is above the law. All right, folks. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at Bobbycapucci at protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. And if you enjoy our work and you want to help support what we got going on here on the podcast, you can click on the GoFundMe link inside of the description box. I'm also going to be making a Patreon account. I've had a few people ask me if I'd make one of those, so what the heck, right? I'll be making one of those as well, and whatever's whatever. Honestly, you folks tuning in and sharing the podcast is plenty for me. I never expected to be close to 400,000 downloads when this podcast started. I'm just here because I'm as agitated as the rest of you, and I happen to have the time right now and a very supportive, I can't stress this enough, folks, a very supportive significant other who is letting me chase my dreams and my goals of, being, involved in broadcast. I've always been, involved in one way or another, but I've never had the time to really do it. I've never really had the time to consistently be on the air like I am right now. And it's because of her that I'm able to do that. So look, I'm going to be here until this case ends, until we get to where we're going, until we push this ball over the goal line. You can count on the Jeffrey Epstein Show to have at the very least one episode per day. All right, everybody, I hope you all have an amazing Saturday night. If you're watching the fight, it's going to be an exciting one. The heavyweight championship of the world is on the line. We have Deontay Wilder against Tyson Fury, a rematch from an absolute classic the first time around, and I am absolutely pumped to go over to my parents' house, plop my ass down in front of my father's 83-inch TV, and watch two men stand in the middle of a ring and have a punch fight. I hope that all of you, if you're going out tonight and you're having drinks and you're partying, watching the fights, whatever it may be, please be responsible. Do not drink and drive. I will see you all. I guess not see you. I will talk to you all in the morning. All right, everybody, enjoy your night.
At the Chicago School of Professional Psychology in Los Angeles, we know you're more than just a student. You're a catalyst for change and an advocate for those in need. And we believe you deserve more. So your faculty are accomplished professionals. Your classroom is the real world. And the support you need is available when you need it. You're more than a student. Get more from your education. Learn more about the Chicago School's Los Angeles campus today at thechicagoschool.edu.
This episode is sponsored by Schwans.com. What are you having for dinner tonight? Good question. Schwans Home Delivery has a solution for you. Stock up your freezer with high-quality frozen foods like premium meats and sides, delicious ready-made meals, ice cream, and more. No subscriptions, no memberships, just a friendly yellow truck that's been delivering food for almost 70 years. Listeners of this show get a special deal. Get 20% off your first order with code YUM20. Check out schwans.com/YUM for details.